today is a very special moment for IWBD, not because we are launching the report finally, but because we are bringing together what we have discussed last year over 36 closed-door sessions, over 100 senior leaders across 9 industries. We are bringing to life the outcome of something much more meaningful. And you know, these were not just panels, these were not just networking events. They were curated boardroom level conversations where leaders came together with one shared intention. How do we accelerate the number of women in the boardrooms in a practical, measurable way? What makes this report different is exactly that. It's not theory, it's not observation from the outside. It's built on real conversations happening inside organizations and how leadership is evolving, how boards are making decisions, and where the gaps still exist between capability and opportunity. And most importantly, every single person in those rooms contributed. This report reflects the challenges leaders are facing today, the solutions that are already working, and the recommendations we can act on starting now. So today is a moment to say thank you to everyone who has contributing to shaping this. And at IWBD, our belief is very clear. We don't just connect people. We create environments where leaders think together, challenge each other, and move from insight to action. And this is where our partnership with Wilton Bain has been incredibly important. Because while IWBD brings together the community, Wilton Bain brings the boardroom lens, how appointments actually happen, how decisions are made, and what truly differentiates leaders at that level. Together, we are not only building conversations, we are building pathways. For those of you joining us today, some of you have been part of this journey. So you had direct contribution on what we are going to be sharing today. Some of you are stepping into this for the first time, and some of you are exploring what IWBD could mean for you. My invitation is simple. If you are looking for a platform where you can grow, contribute, and be part of shaping what comes next, you are in the right place. Because IWBD is built on that mindset. Not only what I can gain, but what I can contribute. And that's exactly what creates impact. Let's dive into the conversation. I would like to thank David and Burcu for joining me today. And would you like to introduce yourselves?
Burcu, you go first.
Sure, David. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Ebru. It's great to be here all together. I'm seeing some familiar faces, and hopefully I'm seeing new faces that will become familiar to us as we see more often. So I'm Burcu. I'm working as a principal for Wilton Bain. And I'm focusing I will explain very briefly, focusing on Middle East and Africa for the last 14 years. I have a background in Microsoft. I was working for HR, Microsoft Middle East and Africa, covering 82 countries for the talent management team. After 6+ years there, I moved to Heydrich and Struggles. I worked for Heydrich another 6 years, focusing on, at the beginning, Turkey, then moved to UAE, Dubai. And the last 5 years I'm based in Dubai, and for the last almost 2 years with Wilton Bain, working together with Sami Zoid, who's the managing partner of Middle East and North Africa, and of course collaborating with our global CEO David Heron, who's with us on the call. And we're proud to be the knowledge partner of IWBD, and hopefully we will go on with our partnership. Thank you, David. Here's to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks very much for having me along. I'm sorry that the event that was supposed to be in person in Dubai didn't happen, but hopefully everyone's safe and well, which is the most important thing, really. So, yeah, thanks Burcu, and thanks Ebru for inviting me along. I've been CEO of Wilton Bain for 9 years now. We are a London headquartered global executive search firm, circa 100 people now. We focus really in the areas of transformation and growth. This particular topic has been, a passion of ours for a long while, but formally for 10 years. We have our own senior female network, which is building momentum globally. And so representation and inclusivity and equality are quite important to us personally, as well as in what we do for our clients. So very excited to get involved in this discussion, and feeling like somewhat of a fraud because I didn't contribute to the report. So I'll do my best to add value.
Absolutely. And this will be an interactive session. So what we are aiming is to keep the first 40 minutes conversation. We will be sharing the insights from the report. And last 15 minutes, we will open it to the ground. And I know some committee leaders are with us. Some committee members are with us. They can also share their experience with us as well. So I would like to start the first question with Burcu. You were part of most of these 36 sessions and co-shaped this report with us. From everything you have heard across these industries, what surprised you the most and what stayed consistent regardless of industry?
Great question to start with, Ebru. Yes, I'm very happy that I had the chance to join most of the meetings physically with you, and thanks to everyone who hosted us in their offices. So to answer your question, what truly surprised me the most was the level of openness in the room. I didn't expect that, honestly, and I really appreciate this. So once we were able to create a trusted platform to all together, people did not stay within the boundaries of their titles or company agendas. That really impressed me. Everyone chose to contribute very honestly, very generously. I will not be tired of saying this. I know I repeat this time to time, with a real sense of shared purpose. I think, Ebru, you all have a great contribution to that with your presence and the way you explain the purpose of IWBD every time. That part for me was both surprising and deeply inspiring, because it reminded me that when the cause is meaningful enough, people are willing to go beyond themselves and support something bigger than their own role or organization. So that spirit came through consistently across the 36 sessions, and I think it was one of the most powerful parts of this journey. And the second part of your question, what also stayed with me was how consistent some of the barriers were. So regardless of the industry, whether we were discussing technology, healthcare, HR, finance, retail, marketing, the same themes kept resurfacing, like sponsorship gaps, bias in hiring and promotion, limited visibility, fact that many highly capable women are still excluded from the rooms where informal influence or real decision making happen. So the report captures this very clearly across all committees, including the glass ceiling that we discussed previously. So I think, that was very interesting. The repetition of some of the barriers, it stayed with me in an interesting way.
That's so true, Burcu. And if I may add one more point on that, I was also surprised to see how capable or very, very well skilled women also not, how should I say, strong enough, or how not courage enough to raise their hand to apply a role, because we have seen in some of the committees that they are super well educated, super well career paths, but yet they hesitated to raise their hand and apply. So maybe I can say that hesitation, or that maybe little push and encouragement gave me the opportunity to name the annual summit the theme courage, because I think we need a bit of courage from each other also to make our community remember that you can make it happen, you can do it. So I want to ask this question to David. How do you see this, in the global perspective, in executive search and leadership advisory? How do you see the gap between highly capable women leaders and actual board appointments? What needs to change at a systematic level? David,
you're on mute, David. You're on mute.
Sorry. Working. I was saying it's a big question, but working on from the themes that you mentioned there, I think it starts with visibility, And if you think about it from a process perspective, when a headhunter is mandated to take on a role, the first thing they probably do is think about who they already know, who might be relevant for that role. The second thing they do is look under various rocks and see who they can find that might be relevant and interested in a role. And actually, the data tells us that it takes 30% more effort and 30% more contact to approach and attract a diverse leader for a board role than it does from non-diverse areas. So that means, if clients are in a hurry, which they often are, because speed is of the essence when everyone's hiring, even though everyone says they want the right person, they want the right person as long as it's quick. Then that means that really to close this gap, the world sort of needs to slow down to hurry up a little bit. And unless the processes take longer, then two things really. The first one is greater visibility of diverse leaders, people throwing their hat in the ring. Dare I say it, not just personal branding but self-promotion, I think is quite important here. And then the second part of that is around actually clients taking longer and sticking to their guns a little bit in terms of making the right appointments. I mean, the data's quite stark on this. I think something like 10% of the Fortune 500 CEOs are diverse, which is a very, very low number. I think board representation is actually a bit better, more like 25% of board representation in the Fortune 500 is diverse, and the FTSE has done a bit better than that. 90% now of the FTSE 100 have diverse board members, 88% of the FTSE 350. Which is a large amount, up on 9.5% 15 years ago. So I think ground's being made up. The big challenge is the level below, where only 15% of the FTSE 100 and FTSE 350 executive leaders are actually from diverse areas. So there's a lot of work to do here, and I think it comes top down. Yes, clearly there needs to be a mandate from the top, but actually there needs to be a push from the middle and from the senior management as well to achieve this. So a lot of things, and I think to Ebru's point and Burcu's, I think the willingness to contribute and the sort of reciprocity that this network seems to be creating, I think is really, really powerful. But I think people have got to show courage. I think you've got to put yourself out there. I think you've got to, dare to be different, dare to be challenged, dare to be wrong, dare to be rejected, all of those things. And actually, the answer here isn't really perfection. It's just giving it a go. So the more noise and momentum that this group can create, even in follow up to this discussion, actually, shouting from the rooftops about the fact this is a real issue and we're trying to solve it. I think that all starts because, as Ebru knows as a marketeer, amplification of this message is one thing and elevation of the message is the other, right? So there's a lot to do. I think great grounds are being taken. But that point that we see all the time around speed of hiring, we'll deliver a short list for a client or a long list for a client, and they'll say, where are the diverse candidates? And we said, well, you wanted us to deliver it within 5 weeks. If you want a short list and a slate that's got diversity in it, we need 8 weeks, we need 9 weeks. So it takes two to tango, really, there.
Absolutely. And for those who are, just experiencing IWBD Industry Committees and who are willing to join in the next cohort. So these sessions we did was for 1 hour every quarter, but it was curated in a way that first we discussed the challenges. We just named the challenges per industry and what are the solutions and what are the recommendations. So we did this in a 4 times in a year. And I would like to ask this question to Burcu. Across the committees, we moved from challenges to solutions. Yes. If you had to highlight 2 to 3 actions organizations can implement immediately to accelerate into board roles, what would they be?
Yes, this is what we also, I think, also discussed previously on the videos that you were shooting for us. I recall that question was my question again, by coincidence. I think that is a very important question because, okay, it's good to have good intentions, but it's not enough. So this is why, firstly, organizations need to move from good intentions to structured pipelines. That means creating early and visible pathways through mentorship, cross-functional exposure, partnerships with universities and leadership programs. So we shouldn't be waiting until female employees are already at the final stage. Then it will be too late to act for it. So the report is very clear on this across multiple committees. So we were suggesting build the pipeline, build visibility, and do it intentionally. Secondly, I would say for the companies, institutionalize the sponsorship, not just mentoring. So mentoring is valuable, but sponsorship is what changes careers. I'm sure most of us, or maybe all of us, experience this in our careers, the importance of sponsorship in our lives. I'm sure there are some people who changed our lives in a positive way. So sponsors advocate in rooms that the other people are not in, connect them to stretch the roles, actively put their names forward. So that was, I think, one of the most clearest and most repeated messages across the committees. And it's also strongly backed by external leadership research. I think it was HBR, the Harvard Business Review, has argued that too few women reach the top because they're not being put into high stakes assignments that lead there. So it's very important to emphasize mentorship and sponsorship as critical levers for advancing women into leadership. The third and the last, because you asked the top three, formalizing board readiness. We cannot keep telling females to be more visible, just like David mentioned, without also equipping them for how boards really assess leaders. So organizations should create practical board readiness programs focused on governance, financial fluency, executive presence, strategic storytelling, and broader enterprise leadership. So that recommendation comes through strongly in our report's core recommendations. And I think it also matters due to the global progress, which is still too slow. So if I had to summarize it simply, build the pipeline early, sponsor intentionally, and prepare women for boards in a structured way. Ebru.
Absolutely, very well, stated, Burcu, and that's why we initiated IWBD Academy and put forward this global board readiness program. And again, thanks to Sami from Wilton Bain Regional Managing Director, he's also teaching there how to attract board roles. So we have curated 10 programs, 10 modules based on the conversations that we had in these 36 meetings. So I'm also again thankful to each industry committee member who contributed last year, because your feedback, your insights also build up to this Global Board Readiness Certificate Program and also IWBD Academy sessions. So last year we did personal branding workshops with LinkedIn, Snapchat, and so many organizations. And we will continue building on supporting women to be more visible in a structured way. So David, you also rightly mentioned that it's also that visibility challenge. And I can say that this was one of the main themes across the board. I don't think that there was any committee left out who brought this challenge, who didn't bring this challenge out there. So boards are evolving, David, as you know, and as you experience, especially with AI transformation and governance shifts. What are boards really looking for today that perhaps leaders are underestimating, and especially leaders preparing for board roles?
I think that point there around AI and how that's changing the sort of landscape, not just for board roles, by the way, but also for leadership teams and organizational structures, is pretty kind of opposite, because the traditional pathways to board roles have always been up through the function of the CFO or through the office of the CEO. And actually, if you look at the data again, there's still a lack of equal representation in those two areas in particular. So I think for this network and for the purposes of this group, AI is driving, one, a much greater need for technological capability on boards and in leadership teams, and two, as a consequence of this, stark change really in the workforce, a much greater lens on talent and people. If you look at the approach that private equity firms are taking. A lot of private equity firms historically have built value creation units and operating partner teams, and these value creation units and operating partner teams have often been populated by ex-strategy consultants or people that have come from professional services firms. Now what they're looking for is deep operational experience, but not general deep operational experience, very specific operational experience, people who know how to build talent, people who know how to grow tech. The role of the technology operating partner or the people and talent operating partner is growing. And these roles then lead to multiple board opportunities and board seats. So what is the difference? I suppose, just taking private equity as an example, and it's a good example because the private equity segment is growing faster than any other segment, is they're looking for operators, not just people who have been on boards. They're looking for people that have run companies. They're looking for people that have led functions. They're looking for sector depth and they're looking for sector breadth. I think where where do you begin and how do you create visibility? I think you've got to start somewhere. I think that's probably point one. The somewhere is telling people, making them aware, even if it's a friend. I think probably a good exercise is creating a board bio versus just a pure CV, something that's differentiated, that signals a sign of intent. This is something I'm looking to do and this is why. I also think the advisory space is a good channel into board work, because if you haven't had a board role, it's difficult to get a board role. But sometimes going through an advisory board or even working on the board of a charity or something you really care about, I think can be quite a neat way of a stepping stone, if you like, for want of a better phrase. So I think big, start small, probably is a good kind of life thought on this. I think these networks are incredibly. It's interesting because I think the phrase you used earlier on was closed sessions. I think it's important that the closed sessions, the door has to open at some point, otherwise that's where it all stays. So whilst confidentiality is clearly important, there's a role here that says you've all got to go out and push this a bit. So a mix of things really. But I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think it's just the traditional roles now that open up board seats. It's a range of different things and different skill sets, which I think in itself will create greater diversity in the boardroom, even from an age perspective, right? Some of the smartest tech people have not been doing it for 40 years. In fact, they've not even been doing it for 40 minutes. So that dare I say it, grey hair and perceived wisdom are not always what they look like.
Especially in the age of AI. And David, what you just said reminded me of what Burcu always keeps telling me during these industry committee meetings, that Ebru, this is like real life simulation of board discussion. So she always says that it's so important to see people in this live environment, because a CV, yes, may be an open door opener, but having participated in these conversations and being observed by real executive headhunters who places CEOs, board members around the world is a great plus, great experience for all of us. So Burcu, I don't know if you have a word to say on that. I'm just, repeating your words, but
no, it's very important because when we had this virtual session for board readiness together, and before that, I had a conversation with our partner in London. So we have, as Wilton Bain, we have a board practice, and we have Sanjay Gohil as the partner in that practice. And before that session, Sanjay suggested me support via connecting me to one of the board members that he's in touch with, and he says that this gentleman has board memberships globally and a very strong professional. Anyways, I asked for his LinkedIn, and he said he doesn't have a LinkedIn, but he's on Wikipedia. So that was a very interesting conversation I had with that gentleman, and so I'm going to connect to what you just said. in that conversation, he said, don't underestimate any committees you're joining as a member. If you're in an organization where there are committees, and if you're a member joining that committee and having a discussion, it means you're already building your way up to become a board member for a company. Because he said it's very similar. The dynamics are very similar. And he even said, even when you join the committee meetings for your children in the school, even it's a starting point that shouldn't be underestimated. So referring to IWBD, our committee discussions, as we just mentioned, where we have the chance to discuss openly the situations, the challenges in our companies, in our personal life, it makes us, the motivation is, how can I contribute, right? How can I contribute to the cause, to the society, to each other, which is in parallel when you become a board member for a company. The question is, how can I contribute to the company's success, growth? So the aim is very parallel. So this is why I think IWBD is also giving that platform for people who want to become board members in the long run by exercising those muscles to contribute to a cause bigger than themselves. I hope it makes sense.
Thank you, Burcu. I mean, this is so brilliantly put forward, and it was a great, conversation we had at IWBD Academy last summer. And since Sami is also here with us, Sami, he, for those who don't know him in the call, he leads the Wilton Bain's Middle East practice here in the region, and he also joined us in some of the IWBD's industry committee meetings, and he also led the HR committee. Sami, if you are there, I want to also ask you this question. If we go one layer deep into the discussions, what do you think is the most underestimated barrier that came up repeatedly, something leaders may not openly talk about, but is clearly holding the progress back?
Hi, Burcu. Hi, everyone. So for me, I think that one of the things that kept coming out as a theme was, and you might have discussed it, I joined a bit late, was in Abu Dhabi in meetings, but one of the things that I constantly heard throughout the different committees that I also attended beyond the HR was I guess the reluctance of a lot of the women executives to put themselves forward or to market themselves in a way that is reflective of the great things they've achieved within their careers. I think as, and me and you, Ebru, have spoken about this on a one-to-one basis. I think generally speaking, men will promote themselves even if they're not sure they have the skills or the experience to do it, just to get themselves in the room, whereas a woman will possibly think a million times before she puts herself forward and sort of, double cross herself. I'd like to see more boldness in terms of women going for positions, putting themselves forward, making the argument, making the case, as well as men do, even though a lot of the time they're less qualified than some of the women in the process. But they just seem to create a better story around themselves. I think on a regional level, secondly, is, and again, us men also have to take responsibility for this. It was amazing how open and vulnerable some of the women were in our sessions to really talk about some of the challenges they've had in their lives and in their journeys through roles, and the kind of, I use this word very loosely, but the kind of discrimination that they face throughout their journey, especially when they're getting to that upper tier and they're entering that club and they're coming into the corridors of power, and the kind of conversations, the kind of comments that are made to them, that some of the women in the different committees that I attended were brave and vulnerable to share those, were quite revealing to me, and it's quite stark to know that in 2025, 2026, women are still having to face this kind of barrage sometimes of comments based on kind of their orientation. So I think for me, those are the things that stood out the most.
Well, these are very well put forward, Sami, and thank you for sharing these, insights. I want to jump over to David. As the global CEO of a big executive headhunter and board advisory firm, from your perspective, what really happens behind closed doors when boards evaluate candidates? And where do you see women being unintentionally overlooked?
I was just thinking as Sami was talking there, and it's linked to your question, Ebru, but I'm sort of just wanted to sort of add on to what Sami was talking to. But I think that point he made around, men potentially putting themselves forward, even if they're not entirely sure that they're a fit for a role or an opportunity. Some of this links to quite deep-rooted kind of, social proximity, really, if that's the right phrase. And I think the term you used earlier on, Burcu, around the kind of glass ceiling and the sort of, the ways that guys have sort of got to the top historically, whether that be through the golf course or going to watch the F1 or whatever it might be. I think creating better social proximity for women leaders into these networks is really, really important. And I think, you asked the question around unintentional, but I think that has to be quite intentional. I think that you've got to put yourself out there and you've got to push these things forward. But as a CEO, I mean, I'm thinking more about our own organization than I am our clients. What this makes me think is, I have to create a forum for our people, whoever they are, wherever they are, where they can, promote themselves within networks. We need to sponsor events. We need to, and some of that's about promoting our brand, right? But some of it's about promoting our people and growing our people. And I think a CEO's responsibility is to do just that. Of course, grow their firm, but grow their people. So CEOs have a lot to, I was about to say answer for, but they do. They have a lot of responsibility here. And the other thing, I think you asked the question, what goes on behind closed doors, and there's often some informality around these processes. Who do we know? Who have we used before? Who have you used on other boards? And I think if you're on the end of one of those calls, Ebru, we've got this board opportunity. Do you want to look at it? Oh, I'm not sure I'm quite right. I'm not sure it's the right company. Oh, I don't have the bandwidth. Then part of your role is to say, I'm going to recommend my friend so-and-so, or I'm going to. So I think that informality and that sort of social networks. And yes, of course, I think organizations are becoming more and more professional around how they run these processes. And even in the, probably the least mature businesses that we work with that are often, privately owned rather than public, there's much more formality. There's much more assessment now. There's much more. So I think the tide is changing here. I think some of those corridor conversations, whilst they continue to be very, very important, they're not the only way now. So I think that all goes into the mix.
Well, so true. And also I want to add, good people know good people. So, and especially in the Middle East, it's all about relations, right? People know people, and it's super crucial to be out there and to have these, networks. And Burcu, through these industry committees, we created a very intentional, trust-based environment. From your experience, how does the quality of these conversations differ from traditional industry gatherings, and why does that matter for real impact?
It matters a lot. So let's compare. In more traditional industry gatherings, we all know here, I think, people often share outcomes, success stories, corporate positioning. But here, people shared what is still not working. So that's the first difference. We spoke about confidence gaps, exclusion from informal networks, bias in promotions, a sponsorship that never materializes, and the subtle ways how women can remain overlooked, even when they are high performance, just like Sami mentioned and David mentioned. So the level of trust, I think, changes the conversation from performative to productive, from not natural to genuine. So this matters for impact. Why? Because once people feel safe enough to be honest, or when they see, actually how I observed it, it generally started with one person in the room. You know, one person started saying something real about themselves, and I saw that this triggered the one next to him or her, or, you know, sitting across him or her. And they also started to share their story openly. So then, you know where it takes us? When you be honest and open when you're diagnosing a problem, this triggers the action plan, you know, because people start to say, so what's the solution to this? And this is how we started discussing actions. And I think this is why it exactly happened in the same way in the report. The committees moved from themes to recommendations, from challenges to structure, from frustration to design. So for me, it's a real difference. We didn't have just industry conversations. We were working around change, genuinely, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there were, of course, particular to some industry challenges, like how, when you think about technology, you know, men come to mind, unfortunately. So that was one of the challenges we discussed in technology. Or we discussed particular challenges in retail industry, why women are stuck in the middle, why they cannot be in the top tier. So there were, of course, those challenges that are discussed particular to industries, but you know what you said are very valuable, Burcu. And one thing maybe I can add is that for those who are just, you know, just joining us, these are closed door conversations, and everyone signs letter of understanding with us to have that that confidentiality among the group to share in confidence the challenges openly. And we had some, for example, industries that the competition is fierce. Like, for example, if you look at our healthcare committee, all the competitors are there, their CEOs are there, and but they opened up. And we all, you know, shared the challenges, and then collectively came up with some set of the recommendations. So after this call, we will be sharing the report, so you can deep dive and read. Here we are summing up the common recommendations, challenges we have seen. And I want to ask this last question and then open it to the ground. And I would like to ask this also to Sami as well.
Ebru, just one thing I want to add. Apologies for interrupting.
No worries.
So I just wanted to highlight that the value here is, yes, we use the industry data time to time, but just to bring perspective. It wasn't to highlight a success story. It wasn't to promote a company, or it wasn't someone who wants to promote themselves, and, you know, but it was just used to highlight another problem, issue to be solved. I think that was the real difference. I just wanted to add this.
Very valuable, Burcu, again, because here the community is made of very humble people. You will see very senior people, like, for example, we have Marianti, EMEA president of Santan in the healthcare committee, but zero ego, zero, you know, toxicology, I would say. But they were just open and genuine to help and, you know, support each other. And for bringing Marianti on board, I see Radhika here. Thank you to Radhika for onboarding her as a recommendation. So my last question is, based on everything you've experienced through these industry committees, why do you believe platforms like IWBD matter now more than ever? And what would you say to leaders who are considering stepping into this kind of environment to contribute, grow, and position themselves for board roles? Sami?
So I think there's two things. Firstly is visibility. And, you know, as David pointed out earlier, Ebru, you are a marketeer at heart. So what you've done in the past 3 to 4 years, and the visibility and the platform that you've created, and obviously, you know, we've been immensely proud to be part of this and part of your journey. And thanks to David in London for supporting us so early on in our journey in the region to be affiliated and partner with a platform like yours. And we've seen sort of the immense reach and the communication around the point that is obviously dear to a lot of people's hearts and is important in terms of the nature and the structure. I think secondly, it's beyond getting the visibility. I think it's learning from everyone's personal stories and experiences can inspire and energize people to take ownership of their own journey in ways that is relevant to them, because all of our stories are unique, all of our journeys are unique, but there are a lot of similarities that when we listen in such settings to someone's story and the challenges they've had and the opportunities they've created for themselves and how they've come over it, whatever that person learns and takes away from their journey, that's kind of, in my view, that's invaluable for them being part of something like this. And I think there are a lot of different societies, civic societies, etc. But what I've noticed in the discussions that we've had over the past year and a half with the different committees is, you know, it's well organized, it's structured. We try and get to the heart of subjects and topics, and a lot of these things can be just fluff, so people can come along and just promote themselves. And I think, you know, I would like to say that the way that you've handled it to make sure the quality of people that are there across the different disciplines within corporations is a testament to how far this project of yours has come. And I think that, to me, that's what people get out of being part of something like IWBD.
Thank you, Sami, for those lovely words. David?
Yeah, I think you know, I think Sami is spot on, and I think, you know, having, you know, launched our own network in a similar way several years ago in London, the one thing that I've learned through that is that the quality is the most important. Like you said earlier on, you know, good people are the best source of other good people. You know, you're judged by the company you keep. All of those great cliches. So the key is don't dilute that, and don't become big, become brilliant. And so there's a balancing act between, you know, that and the amplification message, right? But if the network effect truly works, and, you know, if that continues, you know, to flourish and flower, then I think the quality of the people that are in the room is the most important part of all of this. And, you know, that message will rise to the top. It just has to. Yeah.
Thank you so much, David. Burcu?
I agree with what Sami and David said. I think visibility important, structured, high quality environment, quality or quantity. I just, you know, what I will add is that platforms like IWBD create a bridge between aspiration and access. It gives leaders a space to contribute, to learn, to be seen, and sharpen their board readiness, as we just discussed. And also, it enables everyone to build the kind of cross-industrial relationships that often shape real opportunities. You know, it's a platform that enables you not only talk about change, but you organize it. You focus on creating results. So this is why I think it's important to create that path that makes female leaders more visible.
Thank you, Burcu. And I want to now open the floor. If you have any questions to my dear panelists, to my dear speakers, please welcome. Any first brave one?
I'm going to share my takeaway. My name is Anu. I head Human Resources for Chief for Property Finder, and I'm taking the brave step of leading a committee this year. I'm going to share my takeaway. And what stayed with me is what David said: become brilliant, not big. That's a great takeaway.
Thank you, Anna. I'm very excited to have you have your leadership in the entrepreneurship space.
Yeah, and I want to say, I want to share something. I mean, it took me a year, and I wasn't wasting my time. I was watching from the sidelines. I think in doing what one is trying to do on this platform, and I'll tell you why if anybody's interested, it's very important to be true to what's dear to you, which is what Ebru has done. It's been very inspirational. because if you join without pausing and thinking what's dear to you and how can you really contribute, the energy won't last. The energy will last when you're bringing to the table what's dear to you. And I felt that entrepreneurship space is kind of a space that's not thought through well, especially when it comes to women. And that's where I wanted to come in.
I'm super grateful for that, putting that idea forward, and appreciate that. And one thing maybe I can share, as you said, people ask me, Ebru, how much will this time consume for me? And I say bare minimum 1 hour every quarter. Can you manage that? Oh, then people say, oh, it's very manageable. That's bare minimum. We also take the results along the year, organize partner sessions. We did one session with Spotify, one session with Snapchat, another with Microsoft, another with LinkedIn, and etc. So this is on the way. So you can still join network. Another outcome, as I said, good people know good people. We manage these industry committees over our WhatsApp groups. They are very efficient. We don't allow personal or company-wise commercials there, pure IWBD related WhatsApp groups. And time to time, we also encourage people to share some openings. So I know in technology committee, one member told me, Ebru, if it wasn't to IWBD, I would never even dare to apply the role that has been shared in the technology committee. And she got an amazing role in the company of one of our members. So members are helping members. This, makes my day. Then I say all the efforts, all the, times worth it. And yesterday we were speaking with Burcu. Ebru, 36 industry meetings. How on earth we managed it? How on earth? Like also organizing all the senior people that I just mentioned, their calendars, and bringing them together. Majority physically, by the way. And we just did the summer one virtually, but it was such a mission, impossible, achieved. But thanks to all of the members, of course, their commitment. As Anu said, like it's a matter of, taking that step forward, committing something purposeful in your life. That wouldn't happen without everyone's, contribution. So for those who are thinking about joining IWBD, I just want to say that if you want to do something meaningful in your life, we are just creating a platform. Rest all up to you how to best benefit from here. Last words, David and Burcu, before we, pause. But I think, Suyina, you put your camera on. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to echo something I think David had said about, or was it Sammy, about the board advisory positions, because actually I'm doing a couple of those, and I think to help people feel ready, I think that there's definite hesitation that I felt myself, despite a 35-year career, feeling that you can be on a board, feeling that you can be board ready. What does that mean for people? So we talk about board readiness, and I know we've had some wonderful talks. Burcu, I've heard you speak as well. I think for me it meant actually doing a couple of board advisories. They're not paid. One of them, the guy doesn't really know what he's doing yet, but asking the right questions and really starting to sort of understand how that works to help build your own credibility, so that when you go into a space and somebody says, what do you think for a board, we have the technical experience, and that stepping up into board level is the change. And I think that was the biggest challenge I think I was facing for myself. So I think it was really interesting to hear that doing some board advisories actually helps prep you for eventual positions. So I would encourage people to think about that and think about how to go about doing some of those unpaid. I'm on 2 of them. One's in Singapore, one's in the US, and they're really valuable, but they're not paid, but you're thinking and you're doing things differently, and you're not doing the operational stuff that we are so used to doing. We're used to going in, solving problems, and being CMOs, CFOs, CTOs, whatever it is, you do the job rather than the actual sort of strategic level thinking. So I think how we deal with the step up is something I'd love to hear from IWBD again, and as the conversations continue, how do you separate that and become strategic rather than operational, and moving that into that space? I think there's lots of conversations still to be had, and I'm really looking forward to it. And also joining one of the committees this time. So really looking forward to all of that. So thank you for the the platform. Thank you for the sort of inclusion. And I think the social days are also really important. So I think it's a really great platform for people to be part of. You know, I joined a yoga class at the top of the Regis. That's a really nice thing for us to bring everyone together as well. Really valuable. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other question or feedback?
Ebru, I can make a very quick comment. It's Radhika.
Great to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. And I think I won't repeat anything that has already been said. Huge applause from my side to you and the team. But what I really...
Just to mention, Radhika led our healthcare committee last year. Thank you, Radhika, for your leadership.
Oh, you're welcome, Ebru. It was my pleasure, and certainly lots of things that came out of it, personally and more broadly as well. But what I wanted to also maybe throw a little bit of light on was the balance that I saw at IWBD, which you don't always get, which was mixing the social angle and bonding people, not just within committees, but across committees, as well as some very tangible outputs in terms of the board advisory program, etc. And I thought when we started off, that wasn't necessarily clear, but the consistency and discipline with which you continue to power ahead with that is really making a difference. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Coming from maybe consulting background with 20 years experience, maybe help that. Just for the sake of time, before closing, I want to hear David's last words. And really appreciate your busy time, taking that time and for us.
No, that's a pleasure. I was just thinking about that. I love that phrase, watching from the sidelines. And I think we can't keep watching from the sidelines. I think one of the most important things here, and Ebru, you've done a fantastic job, I think, at packaging this in a way that it's not an enormous time commitment for people, but actually the power of this network, whilst it'll feel like it happens in the meetings and in the gatherings, it will happen out of the meetings. And it'll happen when, we all go back to doing whatever it is we do for a day job, and get into companies and do some of that self-promotion, write those board bios, recommend a friend for a role, all of those things, because I think it's a series of small actions that will lead to quite a big impact, actually. And actually, that's that thinking back to your question you asked me earlier on around, where do I see the value in this network, or rather, where don't I see the value in others? Others can become a talking shop, and I think it's quite important that there's going to be a genuine, we're going to genuinely move the needle on this. Then it'll be a small number of people doing a small number of things very, very well that make a big impact. So I just encourage you all to take that next courageous or brave step. And those advisory board roles are fantastic, because I think what they demonstrate, I'm not saying they're easier to find, because that's the wrong phrase, but what they demonstrate is that you're able to operate outside of the operation, and that's the key thing, right? So thank you for your time.
I think this is the headline, I would say.
Yeah.
Burcu, your last few sentences, please. Of course, I want to build on what David said. I agree, small steps make great changes, and Ebru, you are enabling this through IWBD. It's been such a pleasure to be a part of this journey, and now we're presenting proudly this report. Thank you for this, and also, as you know, it will fit to the discussion. I want to thank Sami and David also, as I can tell that they're 100% supporting female leadership. Here is an example myself. So it's such a pleasure of working for such a company and with such leaders. And it's such a pleasure collaborating with IWBD members and leaders for this purposeful, meaningful collaboration, Ebru.
Thank you, Burcu. And as we close today, I want to leave you with one thought. What we built through these industry committees is not just a report. It's a reflection of what happens when the right people come together with the right intention. We saw the progress does not happen in isolation. It happens when leaders challenge thinking, share openly, and contribute beyond their immediate roles. And that's exactly what IWBD is designed for, a platform where conversations are intentional, perspectives are diverse, and outcomes are collective. For those who have been part of this journey, thank you for shaping it. And for those of you exploring IWBD today, if you are looking to grow, contribute, and position yourself for what comes next, this is a space where that journey accelerates. And thank you again, David and Burcu, for your insights, and Sami, to all of you being part of this journey. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ebru. Bye-bye.